Welcome, everybody. The idea is to start with a brief video showing a little bit of what we are. In the next slides, you will see the ambition path that we are building to become the first Mexican luxury house. For us, the most important asset that we have is not people, it's the best people. That's something that I read in the great, From Good to Great book. And I think Juan and I made a mistake to be very good with people who was not committed to themselves first. And because of that, we become a company certified in a great place to work, using that methodology in order to see where we are good and where we can improve. Now we are the 25th best companies to work in Mexico. And with all these different awards, we can show that we are for real. But the most important thing is those awards requires methodology to accomplish, and we see where we are doing good and how can we improve. For example, the positive luxury. We are the only spirit brand in Latin America who has that award, which is given to those companies who really have the commitment to sustainability. And we believe that the next generations deserve that we, us, the leaders of this present, give a better future in terms of sustainability. And you can see many others here, small giants next to our friends from here. Kosher, which was an award who opens us the opportunity to the Jewish community, especially here in New York, and the brand becomes incredible. Not just because of this, it's all the quality and the value proposition, but those are little things who are giving us the chance to express how we are devoted to quality. Next year, we're going to turn our company our first 25 years. It seems like it was yesterday, right, Juan? But 25 years, and one of the things that I always going to remember is making small decisions every day. There are, in the past years, when the brand becomes what it is right now, they ask us often, what's that situation who makes the company or the brand what it is? And we don't have an answer. We don't have one unique thing who make us what we are right now. It's small decisions every day. Right decisions every day. And at the end of the day, go to your bed and think what you could do better. That's how make us the company that we are. And you will see in our purpose, so now we are selling in 55 countries, and we are more than 1,500 people working directly. the purpose, or before the purpose, the values are those guidelines who give us the road to make decisions. It's really simple. If we are going to break any of this value, we don't do it. And never, ever get fired from our company to make a mistake. And we made many big and small and medium mistakes. Obviously, we're humans. We are not perfect. But going against the values, it's an action that you know that it's against what we have here. We have some examples of big mistakes that we take it at that time and make a protocols to avoid future mistakes. And now we're preventing huge mistakes who can take our company out of business if we couldn't make those mistakes 10, 15, 20 years ago. So at that time was terrible. Today could be catastrophic. So honesty, attitude, quality, team player, and responsibility. Juan going to get more in deep later today, what that means for our company. And the purpose, yesterday I was talking with Courtney and with Don that we decided to erase our mission statement and vision statement 10 years ago and bring a purpose. And we get the luck to get a book 10 years ago called The Strategies, and I highly recommend it. It's written by Cynthia Montgomery. She's a professor from Harvard who was working with Michael Porter. Michael Porter? Michael Porter, yes. Yeah. Michael Porter as an assistant professor, and she was able to see all the theories that Michael Porter writes about the strategy. In that book, The Strategies, what she wrote was the strategy in a company with purpose and a strategy in a company without purpose in the same industry, mostly with the same resources. And she lists different companies to compare. But also that book asks you, what could happen to your work, to your community, if your company shut down tomorrow? And that's interesting questions that we start asking ourselves. And Juan and I always get down to the point that we become better people through our company. At the end, he remembers when he was working at the bank. He was not different as he is right now, but he was less happier. I was not enjoying doing what I like now. So we end with this purpose breaking two big pieces. The first is that we exist to captivate the world through the magic of Mexican culture. As you can see, it's not the Mexican tequila. It's the Mexican culture. What we want to do is uplift all those traditions from Mexico in the highest scale. And the second is to transform ourselves into better human beings. What's the purpose of work 12, 14, 16 hours a day if at the end of the week you are not a better person, right? You are humans. So this change our life and give clear guidance to where we are going as a company, this purpose. I bring this because this is the example where we start. So when we think now where we are, and we have the blessed to go to the major cities in the world and see Clase Azul in the most renowned back bars, I always remember this. This was the perfect example of every single thing that we shouldn't do in a business. For example, this bottle is 500 ml. So we've been begging an importer based in San Diego for months. At that time, writing letters, calling them, seeing him to please place an order for La Pinta, which is pomegranate punch. 8 months after, he did it. We shipped 40 cases to the border. We couldn't export it from Mexico or import it to US because 500 ml is not a legal size. You had to be so naive. We were. And then the pomegranate, when you squeeze it, there's all the grain. You had to take care to not break the seed inside because it gets sour. But the grain, has an elastic piece who escape the filters, and eventually gets all in the bottom. And the beautiful red color of the pomegranate juice turns brown. So we've been selling something disgusting. But fortunately, we've been wise enough to say, okay, we made all the mistakes. Now it's time to do the real thing. Let's launch something to the world that the people can get stunned when they see it. And we launch El Teporocho. Even worse. So at least this was unique. So 1997, 1998, 1999, struggling. You had to be naive, young, and live with your parents to do all those mistakes. But then finally, his father, who was running one of the factories of Kodak in Mexico, well, there was at that time 5 factories around the world. And every time that I talked to him, as you know, I was married to his sister, the mother of my kids. And I always go back to his father to ask questions. And he always tells me the same thing. Arturo, go back to the school. He was totally right. I went back to the school, and in the first 3 months in my master in marketing, first initial approach to something different, adding value, bring the Mexican craft, adding reuse the bottle, because the idea of this bottle was to reuse it as a candle holder, flower base. What we want to do is give something else and not just good tequila. Then we keep learning, and we get into the school to find out how can we make the best spirit or the best tequila from the best spirits from agave, which is tequila. And we learned that it's easy. It's not cutting corners. It's not shortcuts. Get the best agave, do the traditional way, make the cuts, get a good yeast, use the best water. So it's not a rocket science, but you have to commit and be disciplined to quality. That's what I learned. Sorry, that's what I learned from his father, who was the worldwide quality manager of Kodak, when Kodak was the Google at that time. So then we cover the sediments, right? We paint the bottle in red, $750. Then we upgrade the kit. The bottle starts selling, and this bottle, the first cases that we sell, was half in San Francisco from the trunk of his car, and half in Cancun, Tijuana, and another Puerto Vallarta places. But this bottle is still having a lot of problems because, as you can see, it's flat. So imagine Juan going to high-end bar in San Francisco, open his trunk, bring one bottle, go to the bartender and says, look at this. He says, we don't need flowers. He said, no, it's a tequila. So he tried to pour, and because it's flat, the liquid breaks on the top and it spills all over. I says, you want me to sell a bottle that spills all over, cost 4 times more than the best tequila that I have, in a bottle that I cannot see through the liquid, and it doesn't fit on the back bar. I mean, you are crazy. We're never gonna buy that, and you're never going to succeed. Some of them says now, I told you that that was the best idea. So in the last 12 years, 11, 12 years, we start from the biggest, deepest crisis ever. Because in 2009, we've been really close to getting a partnership with Hollywood stars who had a lot of money at that time, said that they're going to put a lot of money and they're going to make the sales that we couldn't at that time, and we're going to focus ourselves into the production. For 8 months, due diligence, you know about that, how difficult is that thing, and at the end, we decided not to merge. But in those 8 months, we've been investing a lot into production capacity, inventories, product innovation. So after 8 months, we make the decision in 2009 to not go with them, but we've been in a real deep crisis. And for 2 years, we've been knocking doors of hedge hunters, investment banks, banks, the three Fs, right? The family, friends, and the fools. Nobody, fortunately, nobody give us anything. A little bit of your mother at that time, my father lend us some money, but nobody. But we found something really interesting. We've been trying to solve the future of our company from outside in. And we realized that the change has to come from inside out. And we believe at that time that we can make it by ourselves. And we start making small changes. And we start looking for the best people, not just people, the best people. We've been at that time more worried about the family of a bad employee than them. And we start changing our mind and says, our responsibility as a leaders of these companies to build a runway where everybody who wants to become better can walk, but we are not going to push anyone. That was a key moment in our company where we turned the company to become what it is right now. Do you agree with that one?
Oh, yeah.
So our Clase Azul strategy, which is it's a luxury strategy. Luxury industry is built in this paradox. The more desirable the brand becomes, the more it sells. But the more it sells, the less desirable it becomes. So this is a big trade-off to compete in US because it's mostly everything is exactly the opposite. And for us to convince retailers, distributors, that it's more about the uniqueness and the margin than the volume, take us 5 to 7 years. But now we're seeing the light of the tunnel. This book is, it's, I will say, the Bible if you want to build a luxury business. There are some concepts here that are going to read it. You will have it, or if you want to take a picture. But the book is very good. This is something that we learned, or I learned, when I decided to start my third master 3 years ago in Paris and Milan in luxury management. And what I realized is that the luxury exists since ever, but in 18th century become a business. So beyond all those brands that we know, it's a business model for this industry. And why in the 18th century? And I was wondering why in the 18th century? Because it's where the kings get died. In the past, every single craft was made in the name of the king. Once the king get killed, now the brands appears. So it's a business model. I have now the differentiation of the old luxury and new luxury. Both are out there, but you have to realize that luxury is changing. It's changing from price, which was one of the most important determination or elements of luxury, to knowledge. In the past, it was aspirational, like a black car. I have a friend, I remember 20 years ago, I have a friend that his grandfather has a chauffeur and a black car. Now you have it here, Uber. Everybody can have a black car and a chauffeur, right? Look at this, for example. This lady maybe is taking a board meeting in Tulum. She will get fired 20 years ago. But now this is the luxury. This is the difference in between I want it and that inspired me to become a better person. Both luxuries still there. We are building a brand much more in the new luxury way of thinking. That doesn't mean that we are not serving another way of thinking, which is okay. I mean, it's not against our values. It's just different. Are we agree? In the past, it was exclusive. If you have money, you can buy that exclusivity. Now, it's unique. In the past was ownership. I have 7 houses all around the world. Now it's about access. I have access to wherever I want to go if I know how to drive into the luxury model of some brands. Yesterday, Juan been telling a story of if you are a BIC of Prada, you mentioned it? The shoes?
No, Bottega.
Bottega Veneta. You are the one allowed to go to the second story or third story of the store. But not everybody can get there. Even if you have all the money. I mean, you have to navigate in certain way now that there are certain things that money can buy. That's what I tell my kids now. I said, listen and see where we are right now. This, I'm talking about, for example, the Grand Prix in Mexico. And I tell them, what Clase Azul is giving us as a company is access. Sometimes access is much more important than money. And the final is, in the past, it's artisanal, and now it's an artful. You see the piece that we have at the end of the table yesterday, right? It's handmade, but it's beautiful. So what Mexico has is a lot of capacity to handcraft things, but its lack of artistical and artful pieces. So that's the opportunity that we see and that we have as a company. So luxury is just a culture, is an ideology, isn't storytelling. It could be old, like the French, European brands, can be new. We want to build that new company, new story, but true. You will see in the next slide how this guy, for example, before going to the pillars of the luxury, this guy is my hero for 2 things. The one is because he leads Kering, the second biggest group who owns brands like Bottega Veneta, Gucci, Yves Saint Laurent, Puma, many others. Thank you. And the second is because he's married to Salma Hayek. So this is a chart that was published in the Harvard Business Review. And when he takes the lead of the company in 2008, the black columns were revenue, and the yellow piece was the operating income. And you can see how he cut sales by half in 5 years, but keep the same amount of money. That's the luxury mentality in business. So this is something that we've been doing in the last 5 years. Blue column is volume, cases. Red volume is revenue. So in the same level, we've been growing our revenue more than the volume. How? Launching limited editions. How? Increasing prices. How? Cutting operation costs of our promotional cost. Not getting to the pay-to-play business. So what we see here is we don't need to keep pushing volume. We need to see how can we maximize our margins. That's what matters. Fortunately, we've been doing both. But that has to stop. We're going to get into a place where we can keep growing volume because that's going against the luxury paradox. I think we are very aware to being clear that that could happen in a few months or maybe in a few years. We don't know when that's going to happen, but we are sure that when we see two things, the quality is compromised, or we need to start paying to keep growing, that is two factors that are going to let us know that we had to stop growing the volume. That doesn't mean that we are not going to keep doing the same volume, but we had to be care of these two things. My problem, because that's my problem, is how are we going to keep growing revenue without growing volume? Because the company has to keep growing because that's one of the P's, right? Is profit. This is one of the P's. We need to find this. And I see the luxury strategy, and this is our big hack. Our big hack has become is the big, hairy, audacious goal. I'm going to talk a little bit more about it. The big hack is I'm going to share the big hack that Sony, the Japanese brand, had in the late 50s. After the Second World War, Sony write a statement saying that they will change through their brand and their company and their values, will change the perception of the world about their products. About the Japanese products. All in general, one brand promised themselves that they will change the perception of the Japanese products around the world. That was the big hack from Sony, and they made it in 50 years. The Japanese products gets in the top of the mindset of the consumers. So the big, hairy, audacious goal that we have is to become the first Mexican luxury house by 2030. There are an industry. Luxury has a business model, and there are certain pillars. If you don't have these pillars, plus others which are not as important, it's going to be really difficult to compete there. You have to have a clear brand values and storytelling. It's not just about that you can be in every single corner selling your product. The people has to get engaged with the storytelling, the why, the how that product change and connect with yourself. That's why we're doing this experience, because we want to go beyond just the exquisite liquid that we're producing. Has to be rooted in a culture. Exceptional savoir-faire, which is a French word for know-how. You have to be the one makes the best certain things in certain products. If you go to overseas to manufacture your things, you can run the risk that Apple had when their iPhone was made in South Korea. What happened? Samsung takes all the technology and competed with them face to face with the same technology. And if you keep that, if you integrate your chain of value, that's something that Juan's going to talk later today, you are more safe about that. There are some luxury houses in Europe who are the only ones who has organic crocodiles farm to grow their animals to make their purses. And they don't outsource that skin from unethical sources. So those are the things that you had to be careful. It's not just about how much money we're going to maximize in the bottom line of the P&L. It's different. It's all combined. I know that it's difficult to explain to a bank. That's why we don't need bankers anymore. Right? You had to have an unquestionable truths and authenticity, like the Romania factory. You had to have a product excellence and manufacturing integrity. So for us, the best people working in our factories, or the people who work in our factories, has to be the best, because we are committed to give the best possible emotional salary, because we know that giving that, they're going to take care of the company. They're going to take care of the brand. They're going to feed the right energy to keep growing us as the transformation purpose that we have, and to give and build a better world. Control the chain of value. Again, we been running the long road in order to have our own agaves, grow our own agaves, have our own distillery factory, have our own ceramic factory, have our own importing company, have our own marketing team, everything inside to keep our core values and our strategy protected. Because one of the things that we learn is we cannot outsource our culture to any other company. I mean, there are many good consultants that we hire for IT, for administration process, for certain things, but not for the core of our brand and our values and our strategy. This is something that we are doing great. I don't know if you know this, and I am amazed me every single time that we talk about how we control every single bottle in the 55 countries that we sell. We know at the beginning of each month where every single case is going to end, and we have to prove that. And if the distributors that we are selecting per countries in Europe, where we have our own importing company, or in Asia, where we have our own importing company, doesn't give us the sell-out list every month, we stop selling to them. You had to be very disciplined with your strategy, with your frame. Sounds impossible to do? We did it. I don't know how, but we did it. And this is the last piece that we hadn't in order to compete in the luxury industry, which is retail experience and exceptional relationship with the final customers. Not with the restaurant or the hotel or the distributor, with Don, with Dave, right? We need to know what you like about the brand and how do we connect. And that's why we are launching unique pieces that goes exclusively to those people who are connected and share with us product, service. And that's why we opened our first boutique in Los Cabos. So why we think that we have an opportunity to become the first Mexican luxury house from Mexico to the world? Because our company transformed everything and everyone that we touch for a better world. I think that is our why we think that we can do it. And how are we going to do it? Being ambassadors of this exquisite Mexico that we have. Like you saw yesterday, that is the Mexico that I love. There is another Mexico that I don't love, but the one that you saw yesterday night, the one that you enjoy, these beautiful things, this is the Mexico that we should feel proud about. And we have a big commitment to uplift those artisanal expression or artisans who can make unique pieces, but they don't have the way of do it. We can be that, how do you say? Bridge. Thank you. So I bring this example because I admire Bacardi for many reasons, but one is because they still private. Bacardi was founded in 1862 and in 1965 become a big brand in Rome. And they, since 1965, they start growing their portfolio. I bring in this example to show you exactly what we are not going to do, but for you to have a clear reference. So Bacardi acquired Martini Rosso in 1993, then acquired Eristoff vodka in the same year, then Dewar's and Bombay in 1998, then Cazadores tequila in 2002, then the biggest acquirer ever in the spirits industry, Grey Goose in 2004, 2.2 billion at that time. Then Saint Germain, William Lawson, and finally, 2 years ago, for $5.1 billion, Patron Tequila. This is an example of how mostly 99% of the houses of spirits where we compete wants to expand. We are not. The 4 pillars who can help us to last, we think, at least 100 years is Juan and I are working to set up trust with 3 main goals. First, to prevent a hostile takeover in a future for the second or third generation. Second is to not give all the wealth to the kids or the grandkids. And third is to institutionalize with a government process in place. So there are 4 pillars. Soccer is one. University is second. We have the artisanal nonprofit that we already run, and you know, Connie, you've been talking with them in several occasions. And the fourth is we are going to start investigating more in sustainability. How can we reuse waste? How can we create renewable sources of energy? All that 4 things going to give us the chance to keep feeding things that we believe in. The university, for example, it's a place where we as an executives has to be prepared to give classes. Maybe not the whole semester, but a few of them, in order to be updated with the new generations. At that new generation will learn not just in the classroom. 50% of their time they're going to be working at the hotel, at the fields, at the hacienda, at the ceramic factory, at the distillery factory, or here at the loft. So we want to give the experience to kids that really get immersed in a real company, and we prepare the best to feed our future manager generations, but also provide half with scholarships. So the ones who can pay are going to be very expensive, but the other half going to be a scholarship, full scholarship. So soccer, 6 years ago, we started with a project to have a 3rd division team. And why soccer? Because the artisans are much more difficult to help them in their transformation pace. They are in their 50s, 60s. The opportunities in order to bring an artisan and put them into the financial track and the taxation boundaries it's much more difficult. If we take a kid from 15, 16, 17 years old who are not having the opportunities, and we put them to play football or soccer with housing, and they have to come back to the school, and we teach them values, we know that 1% of them going to become professional in soccer, but 100% of them going to become better human beings. And we're enjoying. And I am teaching my kids how privileged they are going to every single game. And my kids see the difference, and they can contrast the privilege that they have right now, or that we have right now. I think it's a good example for them to see how can we use the privilege and the wealth to change other people's lives. And basically that's it. Thank you.